Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at the Eternaut, which is brought to you by Pendragon Game Studios. It's for 1 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and games generally run about 90 to 120 minutes. A deadly snowfall is killing everyone it touches, but not everyone has fallen victim to this mysterious threat. 4 people have survived in a workshop, and now they're venturing into the world, the start of a survival adventure in which you must face menaces far more dangerous than the deadly snowflakes. The Eternaut is a story-driven cooperative survival board game set in Buenos Aires that uses simple game mechanics to create a survival experience with strong narrative elements. You must build a team, gather items, fight enemies, resolve objects, and decide how to proceed with your unique story. The game gives you maximum freedom, allowing you to interact as you please with your surroundings, inspired by the point-and-click games from decades past, not to mention the famed comic of the same name. In Eternaut, your characters can talk about a variety of topics, interact with items like doors, shelves, and vehicles, and even combine apparently useless items into something new and stronger. Do you have what it takes to survive? So, if you know the comic book, a lot of this might seem familiar, but just know that you are playing a unique adventure. It's set within the world, not specifically within the story of the comic book. But those events around what happened there are definitely happening here, like the snow, the deadly snow. So, I did experience 2 different scenarios. I got to play the A scenario, which has more of the main story elements to it. But I'm going to be showing off the demo scenario, which I can fully show you. It's not going to spoil anything for those who are interested in this game. So this is a discovery game, right? So there will be blind boxes for you to dive into as you explore this world. We won't be revealing any of those though in this particular video. Now, you have a series of cards that are going to lead you through the adventure, but your characters, this is something neat, that all the characters are universal to everyone playing. So when you play cards for actions, you can play them on any of the characters, and you can talk about what you're going to do and how you're going to interact with the world, and it really becomes very much a narrative experience. And there's a lot of paragraphs to go through and read as you explore the world, but it adds so much flavor and so much intensity to what you're doing. You're just like, oh, should I open this door? I don't know. I love that aspect of this game. The character boards are all color-coded, and he'll have matching bases with the characters on the map, even the standees, but there are 3D miniatures as well for the upgraded components, which are really, really cool. Now, here around these boards, you'll see on the far left is where you'll be placing your action cards, and it's important to note that, again, you can take actions around any of these characters. So, but once one or more characters has 4 cards, that's kind of the end of the round. You've got a timer up at the top as it starts to tick down on its way for you to lose the game until you fulfill the requirements, and there are objectives. Yes, in this particular objective, we broke into this facility and we have to try to find a way to escape, where we find a car in a garage without gas, so we gotta find gas, and then we heard a strange noise. So you have a couple objective cards, you try to meet the requirements, and then you can flip them over to read the narrative if you're successful. Otherwise, you might be doing something terrible. So it all depends on how you fulfill these and so forth. But in this particular one, there's all kinds of doors, and you can use crowbars on the doors to open them. And it's funny because once you do use a crowbar, it'll be like you didn't need a crowbar, you could just open the door, which I like that, and the narrative experience is really fun. And around that, there are all kinds of things that are going to happen, right? As the story evolves and you move through here, you're going to be interacting with those items in the buildings, as well as coming across a door that opens up into a new area. Now, during the setup here, on this demo scenario, there's a card that is a strange snowflake with a token on it that snow could potentially get into the building. If it does, it's bad. You need a protective suit against the snow. But know that in the main story game, you're going to be having menace cards that are going to be happening after every round or events, things like that. So you have to be careful about what you're doing as you move through those stories, right? But in the demo, I didn't get to experience the menace cards, but I just know, I can tell you from experience, menace cards are not something to take lightly. So I won't spoil any of them, but yeah, it adds a lot of flavor, a lot more flavor to the game having those in there for sure. Taking a closer look at the story cards, you will obviously have a main set the story up card, and you read through it, and then you'll move to the setup card, which shows you the map pieces. You'll look at the back of the cards, finding the numbers that it says, and there's a grid numbers on the board itself to show you where to place them and get things set up. So it's really that straightforward. There are probably counters that are going to be put on the different areas of the map that represent doors. It could be shelves, it could be cabinets, all kinds of different things, like a fan in this particular one. I had to find out a way to stop the fan and crawl through the ductwork to get the different items that I needed, like the gas can and so forth. So lots of interesting things about how you must explore, really use your time well and explore the whole area for sure. So those setup cards will lead you through the setup, and then also, same as the setup card, there are as you find new rooms, like the garage. When I found the garage, opened the door, I found the car, it shows you everything you need to set up, which map tile to put out, flip it over and place the counters and so forth. Really that straightforward. These cards just lead you through the story, but where all the decisions come into play is when you're performing those actions and trying to solve the puzzle of the particular scenario as you try to uncover and find items, which are always going to be crucial to everything you're doing in the game. Also, along with the cards, you have a storybook, and this is where things get interesting. As you combine items, you start to look up references in the book, and if you ever combine an item and there's no entry in the book, you just wasted an action is what ends up happening. So, as an example here, maybe we came over to the control panel, we look up the code of the control panel, plus the character, and we discover that it's an electrical panel with a green, a red button, or maybe we just leave the buttons alone. So you have lots of options that lead you to another story element within the game. So as you combine things, you're going to be adding so much flavor to everything you're doing. Now, you can also do that with items in hand, like you find a gas can and a nozzle, you can combine them to make the finished gas can, so you can actually put gas in the car, because in this scenario, there is no gas in the car and you have to get something in there so you can get out of the building and off to safety. Well, at least you hope you're off to safety. So on your turn, you have a series of action cards that you can perform. Now, what you're going to do is play one action card on any character you choose, and then perform that action. Afterwards, you're going to draw another action card. So you always have a hand of cards. Now, based on the player count, will determine how many cards you have in hand. But there's so many different types of actions here, and they all kind of have a dual purpose, and you'll see some that have icons, because in some instances, you're going to find that you're going to get fatigue, and some of these actions will allow you to remove fatigue, which is really nice, because it will slow you down. So the type of actions that are available to you are things like rummage, where you can interact with a utility counter or simply trade items between players. So usually these cards are going to give you one or the other type choices. And then we have take a break, which is I love, because you simply are going to be crafting items like the can, or you find a light and you need to put the battery in the light. You're making new items as you move through the game. It's really a neat crafting system. And then your option for this one is to remove fatigue cards that happen to be on characters and so forth. So you also have take action, which just simply means you're going to use one item action that you happen to have, like maybe you're using the crowbar, something like that. But the alternate here, all players can discard cards and draw back up, because obviously through the course of play, you may not always have the best cards in hand. Coordination is one of the main ways you'll be interacting with other characters within the world. You'll be talking to them back and forth, trying to find clues or info. Like in this particular scenario, we opened a room, we found it to be dark and there's someone inside, Francisco. So we were able to talk to him and find out what was going on and what he was doing there. So lots of interesting things around how you interact with characters for sure. But the other option here is to pick a different character and reuse the action card that they did. So again, these cards have dual purpose, which is really nice. And then simply moving on. This is how you move through the area. You can move the different spaces up to 3, or you can choose to move up to 7, which means you're going to take fatigue cards, but it might be crucial to do so. So those are really the basics around the different types of actions you'll be using, but through the course of the game, it's going to be variable based on the scenario and your environment and what you're interacting with. So you might need to refresh cards in your hand frequently because you just don't have the right card to do what you need to do. But there's so many different things that you can do in these environments. It's like, oh, what do I click on next, so to say, which I really liked. So at the end of the round, you will advance the time marker, gather all the action cards that were played, and discard them, set up for the next round. So rounds and gameplay are pretty straightforward. It's just how you interact with the environment is key. Now, in this particular demo scenario, the main goals here that we fulfilled on both of them, but the interesting thing is that as you move through, there's all kinds of mysterious, you saw something and it's pretty fun. Yeah, it kind of alludes to something else that might happen in the future, right? So, but in this particular one, the main keys were that you had to get in, find the garage, find the car, and find the gas, but you had to find Francisco in order to get the chemical suit so you could go out through the ductwork and find the necessary items that you needed. But you also had to find him so you could turn off the power to the fan so you could unscrew it with the screwdriver and move through the ductwork. It's just really cool how you had to put all those different pieces together. And along the way, you had to combine items to make the gas can, to make your flashlight work. And it's key because there's elements in the story that say, do you have a flashlight? Did you choose not to use it? Are you using it? Things like that. So lots of interesting twists and turns, even in this little demo scenario. It was really, really fun. But in the overall big story, you hope that you can survive. And that's really the key to this game, is survival. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, one of my all-time favorite types of board games is narrative, story-driven, cooperative play. It really has all of that in spades. I can't wait to play more of this adventure and explore this world even more. And learning more about it, I really want to jump into the comic and read more about it as well, because it's such an interesting story. I want to find out what happens and so forth. So I'm probably going to do that, but the game itself, I love that it has a unique narrative around it, that it's not tied specifically to the comics or anything else they're going to be doing in the future with this world. It's its own standalone adventure, and it definitely has that. And how you combine items and combine elements to go to the storybook and read what happens next, and then move on to another paragraph or whatever it calls for, or some decisions you have to make, which is really fun. So ultimately, folks, though, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it for me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.